Now that we have seen features and capabilities of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution, it is right time that we check what are technologies built into this solution which provide Defender for Endpoint with the ability to provide all of these features and capabilities. We can divide these built-in technologies in a very high level into endpoint behavioral sensors for data collection and cloud security capabilities, which means using machine learning and big data analytics on that collected data. Let's see more about endpoint behavioral sensors. Traditional anti-malware solutions identify object as malicious and its signature is added to a database of known threats, and future object detections compare that signatures. While opposed to that, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution is based on collecting signals from operating systems, and these signals are processed by machine learning to detect dangerous behavior. These signals are collected from endpoint device operating systems and later are sent to your cloud instance of Defender for Endpoint solution in your tenant to be stored and later processed and investigated in a cloud. Signals from machines are collected by Microsoft Defender for Endpoint sensors. These signals contain various diagnostic data collection, various event logs such as application control events, network protection events, firewall events, browser protection events, service update events, informations about updates and installed software, and more. That sensors are built in the latest operating system versions Windows machines, even though some previous operating system versions can be onboarded as well, but you will need to do some configurations and updates on them so that machines could be able to report sensor data. In a production and real environment, there are scenarios where some endpoint devices can't be connected to the internet, either if it's not possible or if it's not allowed. Now that we know that diagnostic data collected on endpoint devices is sent to the cloud, we can raise a question: is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution available for such devices? Well, the answer is that these devices need to have internet connectivity to receive maximum protection from Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, but the good thing is that these devices can still have a decent protection even after being disconnected from the internet for some time, because some Defender for Endpoint features can work without internet access, but with limitations, because big data analysis, advanced machine learning models, and others will not work on machine only, or when machine encounters some file for which it can't decide is it malicious or not, then it needs to be sent to cloud for advanced analysis. Behavioral analysis, process monitoring, and client-based machine learning are some capabilities that will function without connection to the cloud instance of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution. But for these internet disconnected devices, it is recommended gatekeeping management methodology for occasional connections to cloud for updates, because when the endpoint device is connected online, all telemetry data which was stored in that device in a time when there was no internet connectivity will be sent back to the cloud for analysis. In a previous video of this section, we mentioned that you can query data using advanced hunting. And now that we know that Microsoft Defender for Endpoint stores various data collected by sensors, we can say that you can retrieve very large amount of that data using advanced hunting feature. Now that we know that huge amounts of data from endpoint machines gets collected by sensors and stored in your cloud instance of Defender for Endpoint, let's talk a little bit about what happens next to that data in terms of technology. Machine learning and artificial intelligence are main technologies applied to that data. And for threat detection, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint uses supervised machine learning models mostly, even though unsupervised machine learning models are also used a little bit. This is important because there are too many different types of files with many different attributes, and even though we could see them in one unified place and manually analyze them, that is such a large amount of different data sets that it would be almost impossible for humans to do a proper matching to identify anomalies and possible threats. That is why supervised learning is used to detect anomalies and possible threats, and instead of us human, points out components that don't match specific patterns. In order for that supervised machine learning model to be successful with its detection, it needs to be provided with sets of samples for both clean and compromised files, because if machine learning wants to detect compromised files, it also needs to recognize clean files. Now, another interesting technology in the scope of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution is so-called real-time protection. This is a feature built in with Microsoft Defender antivirus. Remember, do not mix Microsoft Defender antivirus with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, as Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is a complete solution and Microsoft Defender antivirus is antivirus software built in Windows devices, and as such it is a part of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution. Real-time or always-on protection constantly monitors endpoint machines' behavior and proactively tries to identify suspicious activities and threats, such as unusual changes to existing files and so on. Obviously, it is called real-time protection because Microsoft Defender antivirus is built-in machine and therefore it does not need to communicate to cloud instance of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution to provide its capabilities. And that is what we talked about before when we said that endpoint machines disconnected from internet can still have certain level of protection in the scope of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution. On the top of the real-time protection comes cloud-based protection. Local detection capabilities provided by Microsoft Defender antivirus and its real-time protection sometimes may not be enough. Sometimes Microsoft Defender for Endpoint may not be able to analyze and determine suspicious activities and files on its own, and would need to connect to the cloud to use its advanced background capabilities, like machine learning models and big data capabilities to determine, for example, if the file is malicious or not. So to fully protect real-time protection on a local machines with Defender antivirus and its own machine learning models and capabilities must be combined with cloud-delivered protection and its advanced machine learning models and big data capabilities. But it is a fact that most of the protection happens at the endpoint machine level, so real-time protection prevents machines with Defender antivirus local machine learning models in majority of cases. But that certainly doesn't mean that your machines don't need cloud connectivity to use full capabilities of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint solution. Now, in a most recommended scenario, which is cloud-delivered model, when endpoint machines are communicating and consulting cloud instance of Defender for Endpoint, there may be a case when malware could spread and infect endpoint machine in a time when machine is consulting with cloud whether the file is dangerous or not. And here comes another technology into consideration: enable block at first sight. With this capability, we can set Microsoft Defender antivirus to block running and execution of file if that file has never been seen before. While that file is blocked, in the backend happens analysis of that file with cloud services of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and file can be executed and run only after cloud backend confirms it is clean and not malicious. One more precious technology common with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint I want to talk about is so-called tamper protection. Tamper protection capability is about preventing attackers from disabling antivirus protection and security features in case they gain access to endpoint machine. That is what they will most likely try to do, because that will allow them to do their stuff freely on machines. Basically, tamper protection will lock Microsoft Defender antivirus and prevent security settings from being changed through apps and actions such as registry settings modification, group policy editing, PowerShell commands execution, cloud-delivered protection disabling, and many more. Now, let's see how we can enable some of these available technologies on endpoint machines. So to enable real-time protection, most convenient method for large organizations and enterprise environments is group policy. Every IT administrator should be familiar with group policy, so let me just show a basic overview of this method. I'm here now in my local group policy editor, and as administrator, under computer configuration, if I choose administrative templates, I go under Windows components, and there you will find Windows Defender Antivirus, where you can configure real-time protection for machines. Another method to enable real-time protection for machines onboarded to Microsoft Endpoint Manager is on Endpoint Manager console. So now I'm here in Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And if I go to Endpoint Manager, I'm here now in Endpoint Manager. I need to go to Endpoint Security. I choose Antivirus option. And here on Create Policy, I can create policy that will enable real-time protection on chosen onboarded devices. So let's see that. If I choose now Create Policy, I choose Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows Server. On a profile, I will select Microsoft Defender Antivirus. I choose Create. For these purposes of showing, I will type anything here. Doesn't matter. Next. And I can see various options available here. So now I will choose Ctrl F to find what I'm looking for. And here it is, Allow Real-Time Monitor. That is option to select real-time protection. And there is also one cool feature which is called Real-Time Scan Direction. This is a good feature in addition to real-time protection, which allows us to choose is Windows Defender Antivirus going to monitor inbound files, outbound files, or all files. To enable cloud-delivered protection, same thing applies as for real-time protection. We will just modify different settings in Group Policy, whether it is local Group Policy Editor or Microsoft Endpoint Manager. If we have enabled cloud-delivered protection, for that devices we can also enable Block at First Sight capability. We can do that also either with a local Group Policy Editor or with the Microsoft Endpoint Manager console. So again, if I select here Create Policy, platform is again Windows 10, 11 and Windows Server. Profile, again the same, Microsoft Defender Antivirus. Create, I will type anything here. Next. And between these all various options which are available here, we can see Allowed Cloud Protection. I'm not going to create this policy now, but that was just to show that you can see how it is done. And that's it for this lesson, which was about technologies built in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. In next lesson, we will talk about Microsoft Defender for Endpoint architecture.